Hi y'all, welcome back to the garden. I'm going to take you around and show you a few things I've got planted the past couple days. I'm in that phase of the year where I'm making kind of my last rounds to all my favorite garden centers, and I went to Brown's and picked up a bunch of stuff that they had, including some evergreens and some interesting shrubs. Some that will go out here because I'm looking at replacing some of the annuals as these things start fading with things that are shrubby just because I couldn't get enough stuff in the spring. And then I got a few perennials that I picked up from Walters at Cultivate I'm going to show you. And then we'll go back and take a look at the shrub bay of my things there. I haven't done a whole lot the past couple days. It's been really hot and it's been raining on and off. And I didn't want to get super gross and dirty out here, and the humidity is just not allowed comfortable working outside. So I might come out this evening after the sun kind of goes behind the trees and do a little bit of work. But I've been taking it a little easy this weekend, which has been nice. Next week, not this coming week, but the next week, I'm going to Michigan to a GardenCom conference sponsored by Proven Winners. And so I'm going to be visiting the Spring Meadow Nursery again and seeing Walters Gardens again. So that'll be really exciting from the time I went last year, a little later in the season. So it'll be interesting to see the differences about a month and a half later than I saw it last year. But let's take a look at some of these plants first. So you can see kind of how wet everything is. It's about 4:50 Sunday afternoon, so it's still pretty bright out here in some cases. This is a new Echinacea that's coming out next year from Walters Gardens and Proven Winners. It's called, I've actually ordered some, it's called Double Coated Everything's Rosy. So here's the tag here. So if you're looking to get one of those next year, you may be able to find some of these in your garden center this year. I've seen some of them at even my local Lowe's, not this one necessarily, but like a new yarrow they're coming out with. These blooms don't look the best right now. These are faded and need to be taken off, but the newer ones you can see here, they're relatively cute down here, and that's why I picked some up. It's a really beautiful pink color, so that's why I like them. The foliage and everything looks great, but I need to come back and prune these back so we can get some fresh blooms on them the rest of the season. Proven Winners has come out with some new ilex. This one's called Glow Stick. It has very dark or very yellow, deep yellow, bright yellow foliage as it emerges, and this is a very upright form, which Glow Stick I think is a super cute name. The Verbena in this container, I've not showed it to you in a while because the Verbena had completely quit blooming. And I started giving it some water-soluble fertilizer, but I also added some iron. Some of that chelated iron. I think our hard water around here is also causing some issues. I noticed that the tree, this maple right there that's off in the distance, is also chlorotic, and I noticed that last year. So I think this is just something I'm going to have to battle in this garden. Our harder water combined with the higher pH soils is not loving, or the plants aren't loving some of those conditions. But this Verbena started blooming again, which made me really happy. And so I did the same thing to these Verbena that I planted in the ground, because as you can see down here, there are hardly any blooms, and they're a little further behind. Not had the best luck with a lot of the annuals I planted in the ground. Even though I've treated these down here with iron and fertilizer, they are still way underperforming those that are just down here and their neighbors. All of the annuals planted that way are great, but for some reason right here, even the hydrangeas were having issues. So this is something I'll have to keep a watch on. May have to spread some supplements in the early spring to kind of do a slow release of some iron and some more fertilizer to hopefully maybe kick this area into better high gear. But the good thing is since I did give all these hydrangeas iron because they were so chlorotic, they've started putting on a bunch of blooms. So this is Let's Dance Can Do. And this one's ahead of all the others, and this was actually the one that was the most chlorotic, which is interesting, but you can see it's put on a lot of blooms here. Every one of these shoots are coming into a bud, and the same thing is happening on all of the others in this grouping. So should get some blooms off of these. There's been a few here and there, but should get a whole lot more as we head towards later summer. Here on the corner of the bed next to the driveway, I planted a blue arrow juniper. So I had one of these at my last house and I really loved it. They stay really narrow and grow really upright, and this is what I had picked here. If you'll remember when I designed this space in December and January and showed you those plans, there was a blue tree, shrubby tree here, And that's what this is, based on my love for it in my last garden. And I'm hoping it does really well here. So I'm excited to see what this turns into. I'm rethinking some of my things for annuals next year. I'm going to still do some begonias, but although these look pretty good down here, they're not as big and as full as I was hoping they would be, probably because they get more shade on this northern side of the house other than the afternoon here where some light's creeping in. So I'm not sure what I'll do here. I may go ahead and do some more of these SunPatiens because those have done so well. And this is Orchid Blush, by the way. Those of you who have been here may remember that this is a tiny quickfire hydrangea, and these front two were run over by the people who installed the wells for our geothermal when they ran into the bed last fall. And they're coming back slowly, and I'm not sure that I'll get any blooms out of them this year, but they're coming along nicely, and hopefully next year we'll get some blooms. Tiny quickfire stays, like it says, really tiny, and so they'll just be kind of a block of white blooms here that'll turn pink closer to late summer, early summer. And then we have the sedums in front and behind. I saw that Natorp is going to be reopening next week or the week after. I think it's the 29th. And so they're carrying the lemon squeeze grass that I wanted to replace right here. So I'm going to pick one up from there. I did go ahead and plant a dogwood here. This is the Sergeant Pepper, the one that I planted on the back near the fence. And it's a variegated, really pretty dogwood. It seems to have darker foliage online. That may be something, an attribute that picks up after it's been a little more longer established in the garden. The Veronicas in this area have really done really well this season, although I need to cut them back. They're a little wild right now, but I've been impressed with the growth of all these things that I planted bare root in this bed. Oh, and I planted a tiny, no, this is Tough Stuff Top Fun, kind of underneath this dogwood. This is a Venus dogwood that has doubled in size since I planted it last year. I got it as a tiny tree, and this will get a lot of sun right now, but in the future it'll be in a little more shade, so we'll be testing it in those conditions. If you remember, I planted one of those. Let's pan over here to the hydrangea trial bed. There's also one of those right here. So we've got one in more of a full sun position, and this one will get part sun. It gets morning sun from that way, evening sun this way, and a little later in the day, the sun will creep into the bed this way. All of the hydrangeas are doing incredibly well. There's been a lot more buds put on all of them in here almost, except some of the ones that I was concerned about initially about not reblooming so well. We've got the original Endless Summer is putting on another bud down here, which is exciting. The Let's Dance Lovable, which is blooming like crazy, is putting on lots of new buds too, so that's good. Starfield, which I showed you is really stunning, is also putting on new buds. One that is just blowing me away every time I look in here, and I think it's just the color. I'm going to have to see if I can repeat this next year, is Endless Summer Twist and Shout. These blooms are huge. You can see my hand here. They're bigger than my hand, and the color on them is just stunning. I've got some spaces up front that I'm going to put maybe some like smaller evergreens. I've got some over there too, and on that side of the bed. And then as I may in September when I get back from Michigan, start pulling some annuals out of the bed, because let me show you these Marguerite daisies here. They are looking worse than they were the other day when I was talking to you. So like this one right here looks completely dead, and I've fertilized these. I've given them all the love that they could possibly had, but ever since we had all of that rain, they have just declined so rapidly. And meanwhile, like these campfire marshmallow bidens are huge. Like these are way bigger than I think the tag even says, and so these are a winner for me, and I will definitely be growing them next year. There are pollinators all over them. But just less than 6 feet away, these are looking horrible. So I'm not sure what's up with them, but everything around them seems to be doing well. So maybe it's placement. Maybe I'll try them in a different location next year. I really like the yellow here, but every one of them in this area are looking really bad. So where the blue arrow juniper is, used to be this butterfly bush. I don't know the variety of this. I think it might be Ruby Chip, which is a proven winners variety. Not sure. It split in two when I dug it up. So I put one here, and I put the biggest portion of it back where the pool area is, because I think it'll look good back there too, and we'll be able to see some butterflies in the backyard. But I had an empty space here, so I stuck one here as well. While we're in this area, I want to show you these elephant ears, because for those of us who live in Ohio, I think these may be good to zone 5. You'll need to check and do your own research, but this is an elephant ear called Polar Green, and they are perennial here, and they're known to survive without a whole lot of assistance or help in our zones. So that's exciting. These can get really big. This year they're just kind of spreading and clumping out, but this center plant was the only thing I planted, and it's put off all these babies since I planted it a couple months ago. And you can see some of those babies are getting pretty big. So it seems to be a kind of a vigorous spreader. Might be a nice ground cover. It can take full sun. It might need a little water if you place it in full sun. But we're going to see how well these come back. I kind of stuck this one here because I didn't have a great place to put it yet. There's two more that I intended to be a little more permanent over there and right here-ish. But this can get, I think it says 3 to 4 foot tall as well. So we'll just have to see. This is not its permanent location, but now that it's put on so many babies, I can spread it around. Maybe put it on the edge of the tree line at the back of the property too. Just a really pretty thing that we can have here that's perennial. The Poet's Wife Rose is blooming again for me. It's starting rebloom anyway, and I love this variety. I've told you about it so much. Such a nice, delicate yellow rose that greets people here at the front of this flower bed. These SunPatiens, this is the compact rose, are doing incredible. The flowerful hydrangea hedge, all the white blooms have faded and aged, so they've started turning a little brown. Now this is not as common on a more established hedge. Mine would turn from the white color to more of like a lime color before they would turn brown at the end of the season. But since these are new and have a smaller root system, you do have a little browning with them. But they're pushing a lot of new growth. This is supposed to be a pretty vigorous variety, so you can see all this new leaves right here, and all those new stems down there. So I'm excited to see how they're going to look next year. All right, so we're going to take a look at the shrub base. Some of these things I may come plant tonight or over the coming week before I go to Michigan. I can plant them as long as they're going to be on drip irrigation, which they will be. All of these things came from Browns, so if you're local, definitely go check them out. They have some of the best well-rounded shrubs for the price you pay for the gallons they come in that I've seen. So let's take a look at them and look how good they look. So not everything I have here came from them, but most of what's here, because I had kind of diminished my pile, so I got to keep it on going. But I got some Glow Girl spireas. These are a birch leaf spirea, and they're really stunning. Had one at my last house that I had in a container for the longest time, and then I put it in the landscape. But I got one to go up front and one to go in the mixed shrub border here. This is a spirea called Double Play. Is this 𝗪𝗠𝗪 or Dolly? Let's see. Double Play Dolly. So it's got all these beautiful blooms, repeat blooms that's coming up on it. But look how nicely rounded this shrub is, y'all. Beautiful. We got this is wine and, let's see, what's it called? I'm forgetting here. It's called, no, this is Sonic Bloom Punch. This is a new variety. So they also have some brand new variety shrubs out there that are new to the market within the past year. So this is Sonic Bloom Punch 𝗲𝗟𝗓. This is the new spirea, Double Play Dolly. This one is, what is it, Wine and Spirits. I had this one at the last garden that Proven Winner sent me to trial. It is dark foliage and white blooms, really stunning. We have a Tater Tot Arb, which is a smaller arb, kind of similar to like a Little Giant arborvitae. Some Mr. Bowling Ball arborvitae, which these look stunning too. They're a little soft. They look prickly, but they're not. And they form kind of a nice round ball that doesn't need as much pruning. Not a perfect ball like some of the others, like Tater Tot might. More of an oval, but real nice as well. And this is Double Play Doozy, which is supposed to create just really, really big blooms, and it's looking really good too. Also picked up a Goldfinger Potentilla, which I have never grown a potentilla, but they've come to my attention a lot recently. And they had one, and I could see it across the garden center, so I picked one up. Really stunning shrubs that just bloom their heads off all summer for you when they get going through frost. I got a peewee oak leaf hydrangea for the mixed shrub border, so an oak leaf that will stay smaller for me, but also provide that beautiful fall color because these leaves turn red, and some nice texture in winter with the kind of exfoliating bark, and also just a different leaf shape. There's a blue muffin viburnum here. This is a really nice size one. These have really beautiful blue berries on them that are great for cutting, adding to arrangements, and also just nice for the birds. This is a scarlet fire dogwood. Not sure where I'm going to place this yet, but it's one that you definitely need in the garden. Let me see if I can find a nice bloom for you here. Let's lift the camera up. It has beautiful pink dogwood blooms. Not sure why it's blooming in the fall, maybe just because it's been in a garden center situation, was a little protected, but really stunning. And then it produces the tiny dogwood fruit right here. Some of those fruits turn red. I'm not sure if this one does or not, but a really beautiful tree for you. And then I picked up a tricolor beech, which they have a few of, that I'm really excited about planting around the swing set as well. And then a Jane magnolia, which is the magnolias that produce those really beautiful purple tulip-like flowers in spring. So not sure where this one is going yet, but it's also one that was a must-have for my garden. So if I get a Gladiator crabapple from First Edition Shrubs and Trees, I'm putting it here. I have a Proven Winners crabapple called Showtime that's going out front, but the Gladiator is really skinny. I think the max width on it is like 9 foot, so it would be perfect here on this side. The Tricolor Beech is going to go on this side of the swing set, and I want to get that project started. If I can get started this week, that would be nice. As far as like edging and putting wood chips under the swing, but it might be something I have to do when I get back from Michigan. So as I mentioned, I'm making my last rounds to some garden centers. I don't know that they'll actually be my last rounds, but this is going to be the last rounds for like buying stuff up to plant for fall. So I still got to go to 𝗍𝗏𝗧𝗦. 𝗍𝗏𝗧𝗦 reopens on the 29th. 𝗧𝗛𝗏𝗧𝗧𝗧 for some mums and some fall stuff. I want to make my way. Oh, I'm also going to go to 𝗍𝗏𝗧𝗦 and probably purchase a Bracken's Brown Beauty Magnolia to go up front. Got to have a magnolia somewhere on the property. I would love to put 2 on either side of the driveway at the front, but I've got to figure out a water situation down there before I do that. Could be something I could potentially plant in the fall and let it overwinter so it wouldn't need as much water in the spring. I have mentioned wanting to put some shrubs and some trees up there to provide some privacy behind the fence at the front of the property, but that's going to be like a big project that I would get stuff from like the Brown Tree Nursery auction or stuff that's going to be, I think this year's like September 14th or 15th. I have to look online if you're interested in going to that, where I went last year and got a bunch of trees for sale. Then I need to stop by like Burns and Grandma's Gardens and a lot of the other smaller places around here. I've already taken my way to 𝗍𝗛𝗘𝗧𝗦 and bought a bunch of those hydrangeas. So I want to get as much planted this fall in the shrub border as I can, just because it'll do much better if it overwinters and starts fresh in spring. It'll grow better. Planting stuff in spring is nice, but it just kind of sits there all season sometimes if you plant stuff in spring. So that's why I want to get as much as I can done this fall, and I'm going to be pushing it probably like I always seem to do, but that's just how it's going to work, I guess. It's so weird to be like already halfway through this season and to think we only have like 2 months or potentially less. Our last frost date is mid-October to usually around Halloween. Usually it's closer to Halloween here. Last year it was like the day before Halloween or something, but you just never know. And so it's weird to be halfway through the season and not actually have that much gardening left to do. So got to kick it into high gear as some of the temperatures start dropping here in September, hopefully. Sometimes we don't have much of a fall here, which is a bummer. Last year was a good fall. Previous years it's been going from hot to cold really quickly. And so I'm hoping we can transition nicely into fall, so not only for my benefit, but for the plant's benefits, and they can start slowly entering dormancy, because sometimes we go from hot to cold super quick and it's rough on the plants. So thank y'all for joining me for this little haul I showed you today and some health checkup on some of the plants. I'll probably get another video shot in before I head to Michigan, but I'm going to shoot another video in the trial gardens, the Proven Winner trial gardens for Proven Winner's Color Choice shrubs. And I'll have a whole day there. So that'll be really exciting, and I can do some interesting, fun stuff and just hang out and observe and take a detailed look at some of the things I've not been able to previously. Thank y'all for joining me, and remember, be a light. Take care. Bye.